Hey guys, okay, so this video we're gonna talk about how we use perspective to draw a character in correct perspective. And so just like all our exercises with 1 point perspective, we're gonna start with the horizon line. So we'll get this drawn in here. As usual, I'm using Procreate so that I can take advantage of those handy dandy auto straightening lines. So the thing about using a character or drawing a character in perspective, what you want to think of is that you're going to create a key character, or sometimes it's called a key figure, and you're going to start with them. Now, as we discussed before, the thing about a horizon line is that it is your eye level. So it is the level that your eyes are that they can see. And the reason this is important with a character is because you're going to start with them having their head hanging on the horizon line, so that their eyes can be at eye level of the horizon line. It doesn't actually really matter how tall a character is, because their head is right at eye level is going to be what looks at what hangs on the horizon line. But we're just going to go ahead. Let me just go ahead and kind of rough in a character here. Sort of your average mom hanging out. Now, once we get her all kind of roughed in, we're going to put her some little comfy walking shoes on down here. Or she would be like me on the weekend. She'd just be running around barefoot. Okay, so now we have our character. Now, I always draw them with a little bit extra head, so I'm going to go back and erase that a little bit. It's because I do so much children's illustration, and kids have big foreheads, so I tend to always draw my characters with big heads, and then I have to go back and correct them when they're adults. Okay. So this character here we're going to think of her as our key character. Okay, she is going to determine the height of other versions of her around the page, and this is how we're going to do this. So I'm going to start with drawing a vanishing point over here, just like we did for 1 point perspective. And I'm going to draw a vanishing line connecting to the top of her head, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this vanishing line off the page. So you can see this vanishing line, it's going to go through her heel, the back of her left heel right there. And I'm going to do another one that kind of comes down through what would be her right heel right there. And now you can see she is lined up on these vanishing lines just like our cubes were. Now I'm going to draw a box around her, but unlike when we were doing the 1 point perspective with the cubes, the vanishing lines are not supposed to come off of the corners of the cubes, because what we're really trying to do is we're trying to line those vanishing lines up on her figure. So I'm just going to draw a box like this, kind of around her. Now the reason that I like to do 2 vanishing lines through the back of a heel, through the back of her heels, is because there's essentially 2 points there, right? And just to kind of make that line up, I'm going to put a little bit of our box right through there. Now, the back of her heel back here, this should be where she is standing on the ground. Now I'm going to draw a diagonal line through this box to find our midpoint. Okay, so we've got our midpoint right here. This is the midpoint of the character. Now I'm going to draw another line off the vanishing point through the midpoint of our character. And it's also helpful, I think, to have a couple other vanishing lines just to kind of give yourself a few other guides to work with. So I'm going to do one kind of right across where her collar, where the bottom of her neck is. And I'm going to do another one right across where her chin is. So that just kind of gives us a couple other guides to work with. Okay, so now she is standing here in the kind of the center. Her head is hanging on the horizon line. The horizon line is at her eye level. So if I wanted to draw her back here closer to the horizon line, what I'm going to do is use these other lines as a guide. And I'm going to start by getting a box kind of lined up, just like this box is. So see how this box is hanging off these two heel guides just a little bit? This box is going to hang off of these heel guides just a little bit. And then I'm going to draw a diagonal line to get the midpoint here. So you can see how the midpoint of this box is close to the midpoint here. And so now I would be able to go in and using the other guides. So for example, here, I'm going to make sure her head, top of the head touches that vanishing line here. The bottom of her chin should touch this one. It's just got a little bit of neck space there because she's kind of off in the distance. I've got to remember that this is her midpoint, so the bottom of her outfit comes about like that. Her pants come down. Now her feet hang down below the box, so I want to be sure to do that. But see how I can refer back to here and see how she looks. How she looks here, how she hits all of these guidelines here, how she hits all of those vanishing lines there, is how she is going to match back here. So there she is. Now I'm keeping her eyes right here on the horizon line. And so now every part of her, every proportion of her is the same from this close character to the far back character. Now it would work the same if I wanted to bring her towards us. So once again, I'm going to get some green lines and I'm going to move her close to us. Now this is just going to be a tad different because what I'm not going to do, what I'm not going to be able to do is draw the diagonal of the box because this box's lines are running off of the picture plane. You can see how, I'm just below. This would be your feet lines, but this should be intersecting down below the picture plane, and it's just not going to. I'm going to take out this other line super quick that I kind of drew off the thing. So I'm not going to be able to do a midpoint. However, because I have this line, I know this line needs to be a midpoint for her somehow. So I've got my box. Let's go in. And I'm going to use this line here is going to be where her head is. This line is going to be kind of the bottom of her chin here. This would be her neck. Her shoulders would come off of here. So I can go in and draw her closer to us right here. Again, I've got to be paying attention that I've got her shoulders lining up on the different parts of the guides. I could actually probably stand to move that up just a tad because I'm just barely not going to get her all the way on the page. But But now you can see how she's closer to us. Actually, I think I need to move her shoulders up just a bit because this shoulder is actually above the guide wire. There we go. That's what it is. Now she's kind of lining up a little bit better. You can do this. Obviously, there are some digital tools that allow you to kind of shrink your characters as you're working with them in Photoshop and Procreate. But I want you guys to understand the concept of how drawing out that key figure and having the vanishing lines run through them helps establish the correct size of every other figure, every other place that figure appears on a picture plane. Now, what's important to keep in mind as you're thinking about how a figure works with a horizon line is, remember how I said each one of these, her eye is right on the horizon line. Well, if she were walking with, say, a dog who was down here, as she's walking with this dog, the dog, because they are below the horizon line, their eyes are down here. The closer the dog gets to us, the farther away, the closer the dog gets to the viewer, the farther away their eyes get from the horizon line. Now I can use these same guidelines to kind of line up our dog here. But you can see how, here there's this distance between the dog and the horizon line, and then here the distance has actually gotten even greater. But her eyes have stayed on the horizon line while the dog's have gotten farther and farther away from it. And here, if we had the dog right there, it would be the shortest distance. If we went even further back with our character, way back here, our dog would be even closer to the horizon line. The whole time the character's eyes stay on it. So, this concept of using your vanishing points or vanishing lines the same way we drew them off the cube, you're able to use these vanishing lines, a top one and a bottom one, and then using a few in the middle, especially to line up a midpoint or to line up shoulders and chin. This is what allows you to move your characters back and forth through space correctly, keeping them always in the same correct size proportion as they are coming towards the viewer and away from the viewer.